So here's something interesting. You're a young professional in South Africa, finally earning a decent salary. But when you look at medical aid premiums that are coming out of your bank account, you almost start choking. 6,000 Rand per month for a family of 4. That's basically on average. But that's more than people's rents. Now, if you're wondering why medical aid feels like a luxury reserved for the ultra rich, you're actually not alone. In this video, I want us to look into South Africa's medical aid system, why it's become so expensive, and what's actually pushing a lot of people to breaking point when it comes to this. But here's a reality check that might actually make you start crying for real this time. South Africa spends more on voluntary private health insurance, 42% as a share of total health expenditure than any other country in the world. Yes, you heard that right. We're not just world champions in rugby, we're world champions in expensive medical aid. And it's actually not a trophy that I don't think any South African actually wants. Only 16% of South Africans can actually afford private healthcare at all. To put this in perspective, that means roughly 8 out of 10 people in South Africa simply cannot afford to access private medical care or even decent care. Even for those who can technically afford it, the squeeze is so real. Medical aid premiums have been increasing by an average of 10.7% annually, way above the inflation rate of under 4%. That's a 6.7% real increase, while the salaries of South Africans, those are barely keeping up with inflation. So I'm sure you're asking yourself, what is driving up a lot of these astronomical costs? One of the biggest culprits has a fancy name, prescribed minimum benefits, or PMBs. Think of PMBs as government's way of saying, if you want to call yourself a medical scheme, you must cover these specific things, no questions asked. Now, under the Medical Schemes Act, every medical aid scheme must cover the following things: any emergency medical condition, a specific list of 271 medical conditions, and 26 chronic conditions. There's actually no way out of this. If you're a medical aid, you have to cover these things so that you can actually be called a medical aid. So it sounds kind of reasonable, right? But here's where the expensive part comes in. Many of these PMBs can only be treated by specialists. And here's the real kicker. Specialist fees aren't regulated. That means that they can charge up to 700% of the medical aid scheme rate. Imagine going to a restaurant where the chef can charge you whatever they feel like it, and you're legally required to eat there all the time. That's essentially what's happening. So what's the result of all this? Well, medical aid spend about 866 Rand per member just to cover these PMBs. This means that you technically in South Africa can't get charged less than 866 Rand per month for medical aid. Then think about those medical aid schemes. They still have to make a profit. It's like having a minimum cover charge before you even walk through any door. Here's where things get really interesting, or rather very depressing. Young South Africans are increasingly telling medical aid schemes to actually take a hike, to fork off. And it's creating a vicious cycle that's actually making things more expensive for everyone else. So how medical aid schemes work is that the young people who are healthy pay for the premiums that look after the older people who are more sick. Discovery Health revealed some really shocking stats. The average age of their members has risen from 32.3 years in 2008 to almost 38 in 2024. Over the same period, members with chronic diseases have more than doubled to almost 32%. But why are young people jumping ship? Firstly, financial pressure. People over 30 earn 57% more than those who are under 30, meaning medical aids take up a much bigger chunk of a young person's salary. Secondly, you've got the invincibility mindset. Young, healthy people often think, why do I even need to get medical aid? I'll be fine forever. You're not young forever though. Thirdly, the rules are pretty flexible in South Africa. Unlike other countries, South Africans can jump in and out of medical aid schemes at will. So young people often wait until they're older and actually a little bit more sicker to start joining, which costs them more in the long run. This creates what experts call an age squeeze. Medical aid schemes are actually left covering older, sicker people while losing the young, healthy members who can actually help to subsidize the costs of the old. There's another thing that's actually putting medical insurers under a lot of pressure. There's an explosion of chronic diseases that's hit South Africa. We're not just talking about the natural aging process here. We're seeing a surge in lifestyle-related illnesses that require ongoing, very expensive treatments. What the numbers are telling us is that chronic disease sufferers in medical aid schemes have more than doubled in recent years. Think of things like diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases. These are conditions that require regular medication, specialist visits, and ongoing monitoring. Each of these members can cost the medical aid scheme significantly more than a healthy 25 to 30-year-old who only needs to come in for occasional checkups. Medical technology is also advancing at breakneck speed, and while that's actually great for patients, it's terrible for medical aid scheme budgets. Every new diagnostic tool, every new surgical technique, every new treatment, all these options tend to be more sophisticated and also more expensive. There's also another piece to this puzzle, and it's driving costs through the roof in South Africa. See, in our country, we are facing a critical shortage of doctors and specialists who are actually available. When there's a high demand and limited supply, basic economics tells us what happens to prices? Well, they go up and they stay up. Now, this shortage actually means that specialists can essentially name their price because they're limited, especially since those many PMB conditions require specialist care. It's a seller's market in the worst possible way, with patients and their medical aid schemes having very little choice but to pay whatever is being asked. In South Africa, we've also created what experts are calling the missing middle. These are people who earn too much to qualify for free state healthcare, but too little to comfortably afford comprehensive private medical aid. These are often middle-class families that earn 22,000 Rand plus per month, which sounds like a decent amount until you realize that a medical aid for a family of 4 can easily eat up more than a quarter of that said income. This particular missing middle group is caught in a particularly brutal squeeze. They can't access free public healthcare, but private healthcare premiums are consuming so much of their household budgets that it just doesn't make sense. Many people are actually now forced to make a very tough decision between medical aid cover or basic needs, and many of them are actually choosing basic needs. As if things could get any more complicated, there's an uncertainty that's looming over the medical tax credits, and one of the few benefits that actually make medical aid slightly more affordable in South Africa. These credits actually help to offset the cost of medical aid premiums in South Africa. But with the National Health Insurance, the NHI Act, now being signed into law, the government is also considering scrapping a lot of these credits to help fund some of the NHI, which is going to make normal medical aid scheme rates a little bit tricky to keep low and to manage. The prospects of losing tax credits while premiums continue to rise is actually causing a lot of panic amongst a lot of medical aid scheme members. The human cost of this crisis is actually so terrible. Consider this. The Public Servants Association is actually reporting that they're getting a lot of calls from their members who are actually saying, as a public servant, I actually can't afford medical aid. Union reps are actually saying they've never seen a situation where employees have to choose between buying food for their families or paying for medical aid. But this is now something that's happening more and more. Some families are even considering downgrading their coverage, leaving them with fewer benefits, fewer options, fewer hospitals within their care. Others are even cancelling altogether their medical aids. Essentially, they're gambling with their health and their financial futures. It's a lose-lose situation that's affecting hundreds of thousands of families in South Africa. It's a silent killer, and people aren't speaking about it. So maybe let us know down in the comments how you guys are navigating the high costs of medical aids. Are you a young person? Are you part of a family? Are you part of someone else's plan? Let us know how you're tackling a lot of these challenges. But with medical aid schemes being so expensive, there are some alternatives that have emerged. Hospital plans. A lot of these cover emergencies, hospitalizations, but they cover very little else. They're cheaper, but they leave you kind of exposed for day-to-day medical expenses. Then you've got health insurance, which is a standalone or add-on product that provides some additional benefits beyond just hospital cover. Then there's emergency medical cover. These are services that are offered by the likes of companies like Emergivac. They provide basic emergency coverage starting from around 249 Rand per month. But what happens after the emergency? While these alternatives are better than nothing, they're just band-aid solutions to a systematic problem. They're providing some peace of mind, but they don't offer the comprehensive coverage that many families are looking for or that many families need. So is there any hope for us when it comes to this medical aid crisis? Well, the industry is trying to respond to the affordability crisis that's hitting a lot of South Africans. Some schemes are even introducing more affordable plans that are targeted at younger members, trying to get them in. For instance, Discovery has launched an Active Smart plan that starts at 1,350 Rand per month, but I don't know if people can still afford that. Can they? Bonitas is offering an edge plan where contributions start at 1,498 Rand for their target demographic. Look, to me at least, a lot of these efforts feel like they're just rearranging a lot of nothings, and the ship is actually sinking. The fundamental structure of the system, with it having expensive PMB requirements, unregulated specialist fees, and also an aging member base, these things are continuing to drive the costs upwards faster than most people's salaries can actually keep up. South Africa's medical aid industry is in crisis. It's facing a perfect storm, from things like regulations to demographic shifts, technological advances, and even economic pressures. A lot of these are just hitting us. The current system was designed for a different era, an old era, a different economy. Because of that, it's struggling to keep up with current realities. The irony is actually quite tough to swallow. We have world-class private healthcare facilities and specialists, but they're increasingly becoming inaccessible for people who live in this country. Only the wealthy elite are going to be able to afford a lot of this. Meanwhile, the public healthcare system, while providing essential services, is actually under enormous strain. I covered this in another video. A lot of this care cannot be provided at the same level as private facilities. Until there is a fundamental shift in the regulation framework, or specialist fees are restructured, or the broader healthcare system actually gets fixed, South Africa, you're going to continue to face a lot of problems when it comes to medical aid schemes. And unfortunately, for many families, that's not really a choice at all. It's just a reminder of how things in this country have become so expensive, even health. Thank you for watching this video up until this point. We hope it was as interesting for you to watch as it was for us to make. Check out one of these other videos and hopefully they'll be just as interesting as this one. Cheers.